Brace yourself for RAWFLO by Andrea podcast. This is a safe space to listen and grow together. I will share real life stories, intimate moments of grace straight from my journal, and exciting, honest poetry. This may touch on sensitive topics that could stir up past memories or emotions. Please be mindful of your well-being as you listen. If you need support, I encourage you to reach out to a trusted friend, family member, therapist, or even me via email. Most importantly, I invite you to pray before listening and speak life over yourself. Remember, you always have a friend in Jesus. You are loved beyond measure, and your healing matters. Before we get into this, I want to say this gently. This episode is not about calling anyone out. It's about calling us in. I'm in a season I've been calling new space. And new space doesn't just require grace, doesn't just require us not to chase our blessings, but to receive it. And in doing that, it requires accountability. For a long time, I thought protecting my peace meant avoiding discomfort. But I've learned the hard way that real peace sometimes asks us to confront what we've been enabling, starting with ourselves. Making those excuses, it's a no. Today, I'm sharing from a place that's been healed, not hardened. I'll be honest about where I've fallen short, what God has corrected in me, and how accountability has become an act of love instead of rejection. If this episode challenges you, I invite you to stay. If it comforts you, please receive it. Either way, this is still a safe space to grow. New spaces really require accountability. A new space isn't always soft. It often requires structure, discipline, and endurance. You don't want to rush a new space, but you also don't want to grow complacent. So you have to navigate the both of them. Scripture speaks clearly about laziness and reaping what we sow. And we talk about this a lot. In new spaces, we are sowing into others and into ourselves. So too much grace without wisdom can actually slow the growth and lead to stagnation. Being graceful in a new space does not mean excusing dysfunction. So let me be raw and flow. I've had to let go of traumas, patterns, and even the ways I once oppressed myself. I know, crazy, right? I had to confront the things that felt familiar, but were no longer healthy. And I found myself understanding that I'm not cutting people off. You're creating a space where growth is required to remain. Accountability invites change. Enabling protects stagnation. Love doesn't mean enabling. I can love you deeply and still require responsibility. So loving myself doesn't mean enabling behaviors that doesn't benefit me or that actively hinders my own growth. So there's been many times where I've messed up and I delayed having a hard conversation or multiple hard conversations. I almost made excuses for myself too. But in this new space, I understand the importance of holding myself accountable. I've always been the kind of person to hold myself accountable in certain areas. But when you're in a new space, it's forcing you and asking you and addressing you and encouraging you to really be a new level of accountable. So there was a time when I believed that because I loved someone, I could forgive, sweep things under the rug, and avoid uncomfortable conversations just to keep the peace. And I learned the hard way. Now, I understand it's time to speak up so we can grow together. And if you can't grow with me, then no, I'm not cutting you off. But the new space has already been recreated. the new space has already been recreated. It may have been a new space at one point, but obviously something needed to change. So this is where the redo is at. I just have to stop chasing growth and accept the blessing of it. Access to me now requires alignment, not history. Healing demands responsibility from me and from whoever. Healing doesn't settle in without work. It's like we know faith without works is dead. So much like faith, it requires action. Love requires action. Accountability requires action. So giving grace without accountability becomes permission to stay unhealed. And that's unhealthy. Sometimes people give us more grace than we actually need to grow. There's times where I've given myself more grace than I needed, and it held me back from the growth that I required. And that's where we learn this truth. Not everything that feels like support is actually helpful. I experienced this when I had friends who never corrected me, who didn't lovingly tell me when I wasn't showing up for myself or for what I claimed to believe. I'm the kind of person, please hold me accountable so I can practice what I preach. It's called a practice for a reason, and mastery becomes possible in the right community. You holding me accountable tells me that you're a good friend, tells me that you love with action, even when it's a hard thing for you to say, or a hard thing for you to teach, or a hard position for you to be in. We can ultimately both grow together in that same new space. You're creating a new space, or you're helping to recreate a new space for the both of us. So as I grow, I realized that when I was younger, I thought like a child, just like Paul said in the scripture. But now I put childish ways aside. Accountability in a new space is about maturity, not judgment. So it's like, no, I'm not judging you. And no, I'm not going to overly judge myself to the point where I carry shame. But now I'm going to accept that this accountability is allowing me to really grow in this wonderful new space. For a long time, I said I was protecting my peace. You know how we always say, oh, I'm protecting my peace. Oh, girl, protect your peace, girl. Oh, nah, bro. Make sure you protect your peace. You don't need that. But we can do that to a fault, because true peace doesn't belong to me alone. God gives peace that surpasses all understanding. Like surpasses all understanding. And if you haven't experienced that, I pray your strength in the Lord. Because sometimes what we call protection is actually avoidance. I can't pray for peace and keep entertaining chaos. Let me say that one more time. I cannot pray for peace and keep entertaining chaos. This is piercing for myself. What does that look like? That looked like avoiding hard conversations, ignoring what was already clear, chasing things that made me feel unworthy, putting myself on hold while absorbing emotional blows, holding on to old trauma instead of speaking vulnerably and honestly out loud. I've had to have conversations with even family members of things that I remember that I felt was swept under the rug. Why was my voice so important that you felt like I had to silence it? That says something about myself and about how we are coming up. I'm responsible for the boundaries I enforce or fail to enforce. It goes both ways. So if I allow people to walk all over me, or if I stay silent when I should speak, I slip into a victim mindset while calling my feelings quote unquote truth. Accountability requires me to acknowledge my part without shame and to release guilt for setting boundaries that are necessary. I can't be mad at you for something that I didn't correct you on. But if I brought it to your attention and you made the decision not to grow or change, then I understand to accept this new space. There were moments I felt bad for saying, I'm sorry, but I won't tolerate this. You know how we say sorry, not sorry? It was like probably one of those moments. And moments like this is when I realized I deserved not just an apology, but changed behavior, a call to action. Like, I want to see this. Here's a compassionate truth. You don't rescue people from their choices. That's enabling. You don't spiritualize red flags. Not everything is God testing you or the enemy attacking you. We know this. Sometimes people are simply choosing not to grow. I've even been there. You don't stay silent to keep the peace. Silence kills clarity. It kills the new space. You don't carry what isn't yours if it's not meant for you to help them carry it. I used to feel bad for not doing more, and that positioned me to be taken advantage of. Kindness is a fruit of the Spirit, but it must be used wisely. Enabling feels kind in the moment. However, I had to confront my people-pleasing tendencies and learn that being a vessel does not mean violating my own boundaries. In this new space, we are no longer helping people avoid the work God is inviting them to do. And same for our own selves. Recently, through my life coach, I realized the medicine God gave her to give me: accountability. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's healing. And I'm already seeing the growth. It's amazing. It's a little shocking at times. But this new space isn't about punishment, pride, or superiority. It's about stewardship of my heart, my peace, and my calling. But more than anything, about the blessings that are already mine. If you want access, it comes with accountability. If you want grace from me, I need to witness growth. Some people who know me may feel this is not like me, but was I supposed to stay the same? Others may think I've changed too much or have become distant, but faith without works is dead, and truth doesn't hurt, it heals. We always say hurt people, and accountability is what interrupts that cycle. I won't shrink this new space to make dysfunction comfortable. Again, a new space should not require you to chase your blessings. And you should still be comfortable in the grace that God has given you to walk in and to give to others. So in this new season, new space, I am inviting you to be raw and continue to flow in the new space that requires accountability. Make sure you drop in the comments your thoughts regarding the new space and not enabling. Sometimes we enable to a fault and don't even realize it and call it accountability or call it protecting my peace. We really need to be mindful of these things. God gives us a new space or recreates a new space for us to be able to enjoy the blessings and the answered prayers, as we have already known that He is capable of doing exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask or imagine. This is Anointed Real Talk. So I want to see accountability walking. I'm no longer avoiding the work God's inviting me to do either. If you're in a season where accountability feels uncomfortable, I want you to know that discomfort may be evidence of growth, not failure. You don't have to chase clarity. You don't have to chase the blessings that God already has for you. You don't have to force alignment. You don't have to shrink to keep access. New space requires responsibility, yes. New space honors growth too, though. And new space is covered in grace. So again, I say, new space, no chase, all grace. Thank you for allowing me to be raw and flowing with me today on this episode of RAWFLO by Andrea. Some things may have resonated, so I invite you to embrace it and carry it gently. And hey, do me a favor, connect with me on social media, all platforms RAWFLO, where I share more and keep you updated. Don't be afraid to reach out, send a gentle message, or share this episode with someone who may need it. Until next time, remember, your voice matters too. Grace and peace.